Hello everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel, M Stuart Paintings. On today's acrylic painting tutorial, we're going to paint this gorgeous beach scene. I'm going to teach you how to blend and make a gorgeous underpainting with realistic tones so you can easily build up your waves and create the illusion of an ocean seascape. I'm going to teach you how to do sea foam as your waves crash into the beach so you can paint this gorgeous realistic landscape painting in acrylic paints. So let's get into it. So it's a real easy tutorial today. You're just going to need some white, some blue, some brown and some black, a dot of green and a dot of purple. Now I have a 9 by 12 inch canvas that I've painted burnt sienna and used chalk to create an outline. We're going to have some land at the top, we're going to have some waves right at the top and some sky, we're going to have some sea and some wash as it comes towards the beach and some sand in the right hand corner. Now I'm just going to speed the video up and I'm just going to use a tiny bit of cobalt blue just to create a brief outline if anyone would like to copy the outline, and we will get started. Now I've mixed some cobalt blue and lots of white and a dot of black to get the sky colour, and I've mixed a darker shade which is just blue, purple, lots of white and a dot of black to get the darker shade. So there's two blobs there. One is the lighter shade which I'm just going to get my big brush and we're going to block in the sky. So it's just blue, lots of white and a dot of black just to take a bit of the colour out, and you should get this really nice pastel tone. Now don't worry, with acrylics it's really streaky, as I always say. You probably have to give it 2 coats. So the reason I paint my canvas burnt sienna is so I can see where I need to rework areas, because obviously if it's a white canvas I might not notice it, but because of that horrible skanky orange colour I can blatantly see where I need to rework it once it's dry. So it's perfect. So I'm just going to show you how you can mix cobalt blue, a little bit of white and a dot of black, and you should get this lovely colour that's just a shade darker than the sky. And all we're going to do is we're just going to block in this middle part of the sea, which is just going to be a little bit darker, and we're just going to leave a little bit of burnt sienna, and that's where we're going to have some waves later. So I'm just going to show you how to make this darker blue, which is purple, cobalt blue and a little bit of black, just a dot and some white, and you should get this really nice cool dark blue. And because it's got a little bit of purple in it, it's just really dark. It's a nice shadow colour. It's a lot of times I use this for shadows in my other tutorials. And all we're going to do is we're just going to go down the middle and we're going to just blend that with our big brush into the previous sky tone as we come down. Now we're going to get some burnt umber, some brown, and we're going to mix that into the blue we just created to create this really dark browny blue colour. So we're going to add a little bit of purple to it, a little bit of cobalt blue, just some more brown just to make a mixture between the two tones. And we're just going to block it in with our big brush. Now what this is the water and the sand mixing. So you get a colour between the two tones. You get a colour between the sky tone above and the water and the sand below. So you get this mixture. So what we're going to do when we neaten it up, when we give it a second layer, we're going to try to trick the viewer's eyes by having this nice subtle tone change. Now if we just get some brown here and just mix this in. So what I'm using is just burnt umber, which is dark brown. I'm just using the same brush, and obviously we'll neaten it up, as I say, with acrylics. They're very streaky, so sometimes you've got to give it a second coat, but we should have this nice sort of diagonal gradient. So I've given it a blitz with the hairdryer, and all I'm going to do is just go over the top. So look, you can see just how clear and how much brighter it is just to give it a second layer. So the great thing about acrylics, you can just dry them with a hairdryer and we can just neaten it up later. So we can use things like our tape measure, and we can dry it, and we can use things like painting tape. So all I'm going to do now, I'm just going to come down and just fill in that little gap. We're going to put some waves right on the horizon, and we're obviously going to have a little sort of cliff top land just to sort of frame the piece. But all I'm going to do, look, you can see the difference between, look, a second layer and one with a first layer. So just by drying your work with a hairdryer and then just going over the top makes a real difference. So we've got that darker blue, which remember was just blue, a little bit of purple, dot of black, and lots of white, and we should get this darker shade. And all we're doing, look, we're just going over the paint we just painted, and we're just going to make the blending with our big brush much more softer, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to nail really nice transitions. So if you think of nature, you don't even notice the transitions between things like blues and browns. It's just so perfect, the light is just so wonderful. So what we want to try to do is try to get close to that. Now obviously we can't, and this is a beginner's tutorial, but we can try. So we're going to get some of this blue, and we're just going to work our way down, and we're going to try to mix it with the brown in a minute. So I'm just going to cover up all this. And this is just a bit deeper water, still shallow, but it's just picking up a bit of depth, so that's why it's a little bit darker than the sky. So we're going to try to merge the two. So we're going to mix brown into that colour. So first of all, we're just going to do it very lightly, and this should try to create sort of the shallow sandy water. So where you come into the beach, you get this shallow mix between the water that's a bit deeper, which is bluer, and the colour of the sand. So all we're doing, we're just mixing the two. So all I'm going to do is just add a little bit more brown to the mix, and a little bit blue, a little bit brown, a little bit of blue. So we've got this nice mixture, just a bit more brown than blue, because we're getting more sandy. So all we're doing, look, we're just mixing it into the previous tone. And the great thing about having a big brush is just really easy to cover up. And then now we're just adding more brown as we get towards the corners. So I'm just adding more brown to the mix. If I just lift it up for you guys, and then I want to just add pure brown in my corners, because I want to have nice darkened corners. And all I'm doing, look, I'm just blending the two tones together. Now obviously we've got that bit of a smear with the burnt sienna shining up in the top left, but if you can see just from going over the top just how much acrylics you can blend them and just have these seamless transitions just from adding a second layer of paint. As I say, a lot of the tutorials we watch on YouTube, I obviously watching loads of artists. I think because a lot of the time they have time-lapse videos, you're not seeing these stages, but this is just the trick. So look, we've got this lovely transition here where when we put all the detail on later, it's going to look fantastic. So all I'm doing, just with my big brush, I'm just blending the two tones together, just where bits of the canvas, sometimes you get in your dry canvas, you get little smears. So all I was doing was just touching it up. Now I'm just going to go over this area just with my big brush and that colour, just to get rid of the areas of burnt sienna. And I'm just going to not worry about the horizon just yet, because we're going to use some tape later. I'm just going to try to blend these two tones together. So that darker blue and the lighter blue, I just want to create the illusion that the water gets further into the distance. I just want to make it a little bit softer just in my transitions. So now that's dry, I'm going to get some painting tape and we're going to sort the horizon out. I've measured a little sky. I'm only going to do a little sky today because I want to teach you all about how to do water. And all I'm going to do is use that darker blue, and I'm just going to go right up to my painting tape so I get a nice straight horizon. And while I've got my brush, I'm just going to blend it in a little bit and create the illusion of streaks in the water. You won't really notice it once it dries. Okay, so we're going to make the top waves. So we're going to create deep water. So we're going to get a little bit of green, some cobalt blue, and we're just going to mix that together. A tiny bit of black, so some blue, green, a dot of black, and some white. And just going to add a little bit more green to the mix. I'm just trying to create the illusion, the colour of really deep ocean water. So just by adding a bit of green, tiny bit of brown, just to make it, give it that realistic tone, we should create this sort of bluey green colour. and this is going to be a really far off, really deep water. So what I'm doing, I've swapped to a flat brush, and all I'm doing, I'm going right up to the tape. So I'm creating a really nice dark straight line, and I'm just deliberately just making it a bit uneven, and that's going to create the illusion of far off waves. So what I'm going to try to do is create the top of our horizon as this really deep far away water, and I'm just going to mix a little bit of the darker of the two shadow colours. So I'm just going to make a little bit lighter tone, and I'm just going to come a little bit down from it, and I'm just going to create sort of an edge, and this is going to be sort of the underneath of that wave. And what we'll do is we'll put some highlights on the sort of sea froth in a minute, but we're just trying to build it up with realistic tones. So I'm going a bit darker again. I'm just a little bit of the darker paint to the previous tone, just a little bit, and I'm just trying to create the illusion of far away waves that are building up. And when you have a wave, you have like the sort of darker sort of build up, and then you have all the froth. So I'm just adding a little bit of brown to the mix. So a little bit brown, just a tiny bit, still a very dark tone, and I'm just going to create sort of a diagonal line now of the nearest wave. So again, just very similar tone to the one we did right on the horizon. I've just added a little bit of brown to it. It's still this greeny blue, and this is going to be the build up of a wave that's coming towards the shore. Excellent. So just add a little bit more brown to it, and I'm just going to create with my flat brush sort of like flat Z shapes or Z shapes. So if you think of just sort of little like lightning bolt shapes, all I'm doing is I'm just trying to create sort of the ripple effect on the wave. Where you get a wave come right up to the shore, it has sort of loads of little indents on it where the water builds up just before it strikes, and you get sort of the frothy wash. So all we're doing is we're trying to create the illusion of that to make our work look 3D. So look, if I go really slow, look, I'm just trying to make like Z shapes. So if you imagine a Z, like if you were writing someone snoring, like Z, Z, Z. All I'm doing is just creating little zigzags. And while I've got that tone, I'm just going to darken up this one, and I'm going to make it a little bit more diagonal, just so it matches with that wave that's nearest. So that looks cool. But you can see now already the tones are trying to trick your eye, because we've got that fantastic underpainting. As I say, if by taking your time and making the blending work, it really does trick your eyes. So we're just adding some blue to the mix and a tiny bit of brown just to create a really dark blue, and we're just going to create the illusion of waves. So we're just going to try to blend it into that previous tone, and these are just some deep waves going out as the water gets deeper. So the great thing is because we've got that fantastic blending underneath, now that we've got our flat brush and we're just creating these lines to insinuate sort of the tops and caps of waves, it will trick your eye. So as I said, this tutorial is fantastic for beginners and people who are looking to advance in things like seascapes, because you can always learn to get more detailed. So you can always try to go more photorealistic, but as I say, it's the colours, the tones, that is the thing that is really tricking your eye. So look, all I'm doing, I've got very little paint on my brush, and all I'm doing is just creating straight lines and zigzags, just the impression of the caps of waves. But it's the blended colour underneath from that blue into the brown, and these lovely realistic tones that we've got for our ocean waves that are creating the illusion of the trick to make the painting look more realistic and more detailed than it is. So as I say, these tutorials are fantastic for beginners. They're fantastic for people who want to learn, and as you get better at drawing, you get better at compositions and realism, you can apply all this and make your work look fantastic. So that's already looking great. I'm going to just take some of that sky colour we had, which was white and a dot of black and some blue, and all I'm going to do with that sort of really nice pastel colour, I'm just going to load up a smaller brush and I'm just going to try to create sort of wiggles, no detail, just sort of little wiggles with my brush to create the illusion of waves. So this is sort of the froth from the wave, and all I'm doing is I'm leaving some little gaps in between. So I'm going up and then I'm going down. I'm just trying to create sort of the caps of waves, and just by leaving little gaps it just creates the illusion of detail. It just creates the little illusion that far off in the background there's some realistic waves that are coming towards the shore, towards our beach, and this sort of rough water is creating a lovely sea effect. So if I zoom in a bit, we'll do this nearer one. Same colour, so just white, tiny bit of cobalt blue and a dot of black. So just a dot of black, mainly white. It's off-white. Look, I'm just leaving gaps. I'm just trying to create the impression of sort of sea froth and foam crashing into the wave. And because we've got that undercolour underneath and we're leaving gaps, it makes it look 3D and it makes it look like a real wave. So look at this. Look at this for realism. And there's no detail. So this painting's going to take 40 minutes to paint. It's nothing. So imagine if you applied this and you spent about 2 hours and you did it realistically, you can make it look like a photo. So all we're going to do, look, we're going to do the same trick, and all I'm doing is just smearing my brush. I'm literally I'm trying to deliberately make it look messy, but just pushing hard against the brush just to create sort of the illusion of froth. So look, I'm just sort of scraping it and pushing it. So it's just, and the more it pushes and springs up, it creates the illusion of froth. Let's see. Yay! Look at that. So we've got this 3D wave effect going on already. This is fantastic. So I'm just going to neaten up this bit here. So as I've said in my previous acrylic painting tutorials, if you have areas that you just need to rework, just like I'm doing now, I'm just adding the same tone over the top. Just with acrylics, if you're using a very pastel tone, sometimes they pick up the colour from underneath. So if you're using things like white, or you're using this really light colour that we're using now, you just have to sometimes give it a second tone just to emphasize a highlight, just because obviously it's picking up the darker shade that's underneath it. So sometimes if you want to make something a bit more white or a bit brighter, you've just got to give it 2 coats, just like we did with the sky. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just leaving a gap and I'm just trying to create the impression when you have a wave come, it has this nice highlight before it curls round. So all I'm doing is just leaving a gap between the frothy ridge, and I'm just trying to create sort of a light effect just sort of on that sort of wave, and all I'm using is the same colour that we just did the froth. Now, as I said, you can go very photorealistic. So look, all I'm going to show you is you can create squiggles. So all I'm doing is just creating sort of little squiggles, and these are all the sort of gems of light that sort of hit wave caps and sort of reflect up the light and create a really nice sort of shimmer in the water. Now you could do this for your whole ocean. You could go all the way back to those far off waves, but I'm just going to do the front because, as I say, it's a beginner's tutorial and I don't want to go too super detailed because I want to teach you all how to do it. But all I'm doing, look, I'm just creating little shines on certain waves, little highlights. Now, as I say, just like we did with the flat brush and the darker tone, if you choose to, you could do that all the way to the back. But I'm just going to do it on this wave just to emphasize it, just so, again, just like the other acrylic tutorials, I just want to get people to focus right down the middle. So I want people to be lost in my composition, and the reason I do that is I normally have something in the middle to try to draw your eye. Now I'm going to take some blue and some brown. I'll get it up on camera in a minute so you can see. But all it is, I'm going to get some cobalt blue and some burnt umber, and I'm just going to darken up some of these waves. So I'll show you on camera. It's just some cobalt blue and some burnt umber, And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to darken up underneath here and just give it a little shadow. So just with my flat brush, I'm just using it like an outliner. I'm just outlining that wave. Don't worry if it's messy, we're going to neaten up everything towards the end. But already our waves are starting to look fantastic. They're looking really real, they're looking really realistic, and as I say, it's not hard at all. It's all in the detail. Now we're going to add a tiny bit of brown to that mix. So we've got this bluey brown, but a little bit more brown than blue, so it's a bit off camera. And all I'm going to do is create sort of divots in the sand. So where you have little sort of pockets of sand, you have these sort of little ridges, and you have bits of bobs as the water sort of runs off. So again, we're creating this 3D illusion, but it's the underpainting, that transition of colour that we did at the beginning, that we took our time with. Oops, my tape's stuck here. That is tricking your eye. So there's the subscribe button and the bell notification. Please, if you are a subscriber already, if you turn the bell notification every time I upload a new tutorial, which is weekly now, you will get a notification and you can go straight to it so you don't miss it. So if you would love to subscribe, we'd be really grateful, because the more people are subscribing, the more YouTube shows the videos, and we can hopefully other artists gets to see them. So we're going to remove our tape. Mine's a bit crooked here and a bit scraping away. It's taking a bit of my underpaint, so we'll fix that in a minute. It's no bother. And we should have this fantastic 3D ocean. So don't worry if you have any bits like mine where it takes a bit of the paint off, you can always neaten it up later once you dry it. So we've got this fantastic blend now, and it's real realistic tone. So I'm going to teach you how to do the wave right up from the ocean coming onto the beach. So we're going to teach you how to do sea foam now, but we've got this lovely straight horizon off in the distance. So actually, let's do the land first. Let's do that. So I'm going to put my tape on. Now I promise my painting is straight. I think because I've got the painting at an angle, because I've got it up on the easel, it just looks a bit wonky, but I assure you it is straight, because the worst thing you want to do is not measure your horizon and have a wonky horizon, because when you hang it up on the wall, if you go to sell it, it will be wonky and it will really annoy you. I know this because I've done this before. So try to, if you have a little tape measure or a little ruler, always try to measure your horizon so it's nice and straight. So look, all I'm going to do is anywhere that I've missed or I've taken a bit of paint off when I've removed the tape, I'm just going to use some of that sky tone just to neaten it up. I'm going to create an island, I think. So let's just cover up those dots. I don't think you can see because obviously there is close to the camera. But let's create an island. So how do we create an island? Well, we want to create a faraway scene. So you use blue, as I've been saying in all my other tutorials. We use blue, a lot of white, and a dot of black. So cobalt blue, a little bit of black, just to desaturize it. And we're going to add a little bit of green to it, just a little bit. And we're going to create this really nice desaturated far off blue tone, and this blue tone will give the impression, because the sky is blue, that this island is far off into the distance. So just like the underpainting, the tones, again, it's not any detail, I'm just going to create the illusion of a far off island just with this tone. And I'm coming just like we did with the tape with the horizon. I'm going right down to the tape, and because my horizon's nice and straight, my island will be perfectly straight and flat on my ocean water. So this tape really helps. And because of the tone, if we remove it, it will look like a far away island. Look at that. So if I move my arm, look at that. And again, it's because of the tone that tricks your eye. And if you've missed a bit like me, or you've removed the tape, I'm having a bit of a tape nightmare today. I'm just going to neaten it up with the exact same tone. There we go. So it looks like a lovely faraway distance island. Now I think I had a dirty brush when I repainted my sky, so I'm going to do a little trick. I'm going to add a tiny bit of white to my sky colour, and I'm just going to add some clouds where I made a big smear on my sky. So you don't have to do this, all I'm doing just to cover up that dirty smear. As I said to you, I'm very lazy, I do this every day. Sometimes I pick up the wrong brush and you make a mistake. But as Bob Ross used to say, there's no such thing as a mistake, there's only happy accidents. So all I'm going to do is just take a tiny bit of white just to create some far off the illusion of clouds. So there we go, we've got this fantastic island now. And let's add a little bit of white. And do you know what, let's make the clouds a little bit darker, not too much. You probably can't see much of this at home, but I've just added a little bit of white to my sky colour, and I'm just using a really dry brush, and I'm just creating the illusion of sort of wispy faraway clouds. It's a great little trick. If you ever have a dirty brush and you ruin your sky, just paint over it with a cloud. Just create a cloud on top. just give it a cloud. Just add something on top. As I say, you can always paint over anything. There's nothing you can't add, and it adds to the realism. So look, just by creating some clouds, it's giving another dimension to our painting. Wow, look at that. So we're going to use that same colour. So it's just the sky colour. And we're going to create all the froth now. So coming up to our beach. So I want to teach you, now we've done waves, we want to create a really lovely ocean sort of sea foam. So all I'm doing, I'm just using my brush. I've got loads of paint loaded up to it, and I'm creating a really thick edge. And that's all the sort of wash when the water from the sea comes in, and it creates this lovely thick sort of foam that comes up towards the shore and sort of peels back, and you get this great sort of almost like a carpet effect that comes up onto the sand of our beach. So look at that. So just from the underpainting, can you see, even though we've added this really nice sort of clear definition, it's the colour underneath. I keep emphasising that. So even though people, I know like everyone is like watching this and some people fast forwarded it, but the blending of your tones is the thing that tricks your eyes. So if you're working on your realism, really slow down and work on your blending. And as I say, your realism by adding the highlights and the detail on top is the easy part. It's the blending that's the thing that tricks your eye. So look, we're going to go diagonally, and we're just going to create zigzags. So like we did with the waves, but we're going to go diagonally now, and we're just going to create splodges. There's no sort of really sort of easy way to describe this, but all I want to do is have some that interlinked to the foam edge and some that are bubbles, and I'm just going to create shapes, but I want them kind of all going diagonally so they look. So if you imagine, we're always going to sort of go towards the left hand corner, and we're just going to create the illusion of sea foam. So look, we're just going to create wiggles. So all it is the sky colour, which was white, some cobalt blue and a dot of black. So white, some cobalt blue and a dot of black. And all I've got is a fine liner, and I'm just trying to create sort of wiggle shapes. So as I say, you can get a reference photo and you can do this photo realistically, but I'm just going to make it up. I'm just going to do it to try and show you it's the colours. And as I say, you can always work on your realism yourself when you practice at home. And the same trick applies to sunsets. We've got plenty of seascape tutorials, we've got plenty of landscape tutorials, and also plenty of sunset seascapes. And it's the same trick. So where you've done the sky tone, you try to match it to your sea. So almost like a mirror. So if your sky was red or yellow and orange, you try to match it onto your wash, and then you use over the top this sort of highlight tone to create the illusion of froth and waves. So we've got plenty of sunset seascapes. So if anyone would like to learn after this video, I've created playlists for all of you. But if I zoom out now, look at that. Just as I say, there's no detail on this painting. It's a very easy painting. It's not hard at all. There's no hours of detail. It's just the tones, and these tones, because they're so realistic, and we've taken our time and we've done everything right, and just by doing the underpainting and blending them and mixing them, we're creating this fantastic illusion that's creating the realism. So as I say, look, I'm just trying to create shapes, some wiggles, some are joining up to that foam border, just so it makes it look like it's peeling back. And what it should do is look like a water carpet that is sort of peeling back from the beach back into the ocean. So it's a wonderful tutorial for waves. Really easy one. Look, all I'm doing, I'm just going over the top. As I say, sometimes with lighter pastel tones with acrylics, the underpainting shines through, hence the burnt sienna at the beginning. And just by going over the top with that lighter colour once it dries. I have a lot of followers from all around the world who send me Instagram messages, and a lot of people live in really humid or hot countries such as South America and India and places like that, in Asia. If you find your acrylics dry really quickly, there's a little trick that I've figured out, which doesn't come in often in cold London, but it's basically using a water spray bottle, something that you would use to spray your plants. Just fill it up with water and just give your palette a little spray, and because it's got not very much water in at all, it's almost like a spray. It just keeps your paint nice and wet and saves them from drying up, and will lower your costs and also keep all your paints nice and wet if you're painting in a hot climate or in the summer months. So there you go, a wealth of knowledge. Look, all I'm doing now is just getting some of that darker blue, and I'm just going around the edge. I had an idea to make it look like a shadow and make it even more 3D, but I thought, you know what, as I say, I don't want to make it too complicated. So all I'm doing is on one edge, I'm just getting a bit darker, and I'm just using that darker of the two blues just to reflect a bit of the ocean colour, just to make it match the sea tone that we have in the middle, just so it looks a bit more realistic. But I was going to make the how do you put it, the bubbles all super realistic, but I thought, you know what, we'll leave that for another tutorial, because I think this one's aimed at beginners and I don't want to make it too hard. We do have harder tutorials, as I say, we've got ones that are over an hour long, which are all step by step, and I will be doing lots of more detailed, longer step by step ones for people, because if anyone follows my Instagram, these paintings, as I say, these tutorials, they're just the tip of the iceberg. These sort of things take me 45 minutes. They're like, I don't know, super easy for me. So like my real work takes like I don't know, a day. So just if anyone would like to see my proper stuff, it's just at mstuartpaintings on Instagram. And as I say, thank you so much for all the people who are doing the tutorials and sending them to me via my Instagram so I can share them for people. I'm really impressed and really proud of a lot of people. A lot of people that have improved massively that I know, and by doing the tutorials it's made me really proud just to see how well they've done and how well they've taken on all these ideas and concepts that I'm teaching and applied it to their own artwork, and it's just fantastic. So if you ever do any of my tutorials, please tag me and DM me at mstuartpaintings on Instagram so I can check them out. So look, our landscape is, or our seascape even, is looking fantastic. And as I say, you can add a little bit of white just to emphasize some of the highlights, things like your foam or some bubbles. You can just use a fine liner and just go over the top. So look, just by going over the top of your foam, you can just make it look even brighter. But sometimes it's good to just leave some of the original paint to pick up the underpainting, and what it does is it just naturally blends and tricks the eye. But we really want to emphasize our waves, so we want to emphasize our sea froth. So I'm just going to take pure titanium white now, and I'm just going to leave gaps with that darker pastel blue. By leaving gaps, I'm just going to use a small brush, and again I'm just going to do that trick where I just splat the brush. Oops, I've stained my sand. That could be a bubble, don't worry. And all I'm going to do is just leave gaps, and again it's just to emphasize the froth and just to make it look again more 3D. So we're just going over the top with some bright white. We're just going to emphasize the sea wave, and we're just going to do it in the background as well. So same trick. So look, watch, we're just going to leave gaps, and some of them we're just going to highlight, and it will just make the 3D effect look even more realistic, because what it's doing is just making it look like the light is hitting some and some are in the shadow, and it will just give your work an even more 3D look. So look at this. This is such an easy tutorial. It's so fab because there is no detail. It's just all in the tones and all in the techniques. So I really hope you're going to like it, and you'll subscribe and you'll share it, because hopefully it really helps other artists. The more everyone sees it, the more it can get to other people who are willing to learn and wanting to learn. So look, just by leaving gaps, look at that, easy peasy. It's just emphasizing it to make it look more 3D. It's looking fantastic. Woohoo! Look at that. So just to finish it off, we're going to get some blue and some brown, and we're just going to create a really dark shadow tone, so just a bit more blue than brown. So we've got this really dark tone, and we're just going to outline our sea foam as it comes up on the beach. So as our ocean water comes up onto the beach, it pulls back, and when it does, it leaves sort of like a wet, darker sand. So all we're doing is just going to go around and create a dark outline, and what that does as well, it just emphasizes your wave. So not only does it make it look more 3D, it just makes it stand out more. Now you can use that same color to just add some dots on your sand. If you want to, you can just add some dots just where we did those little streaks in the water and on the sand. If you want to, you could even do some footprints. You can just add little levels of detail, but all I'm going to do, I'm just going to outline with that color just sort of where that water's peeling back. It gives a shadow and also creates a wet water thing, but that looks fab. Ooh. I'm just going to get some white. Problem with me, because I'm a perfectionist with my work, even on these tutorials, I don't mean to, but I go back and I fiddle things. I can't help myself. It's just, I'm used to it from years and years of painting scenes. So I'm used to going back and doing every wave and everything, and I have to stop myself. So sorry if you see me going back. So even look, I've signed it in the corner and I've still gone back to do some bits. So as I say, all artists, if you don't like your work and you're always going back to change bits, that's not a bad thing. That's a great sign, because it means you care and it means you always want to improve. So all I'm doing, I'm just using some white just to really emphasize that middle of that wave, because I want the people to focus down the middle. It's a great trick if you put something right in the middle of a painting. I'm just getting some of that blue and brown that we just used for that shadow tone. I'm just going to outline our wave. It's a great trick by putting something in the middle. It just draws people's eyes straight down the middle. It's almost like having a bullseye right in the middle of your work, and by just having something in the middle, even if it's just a little bit of a highlight or the sun, anything like that, it will draw people to the middle. So look, if you've got a dry painting like mine and you make a mistake, you can just use a baby wipe or a wet cloth and just wipe away. So all I'm doing, I'm just using a fine liner. I'm just outlining that one wave just to really emphasize it, to make it look more 3D, just like we did with the nearest wave. And we have this fantastic acrylic seascape beach. So I've signed it in the bottom left hand corner, so you've learned how to do realistic waves. You've learned how to do a really realistic underpainting for your ocean, a realistic sky. You've learned how to do this gradient of color coming into the deep water, into the sand. You've learned how to do these diagonal waves, how to do sea froth, how to do the faraway land, and you've created this wonderful seascape in just about 40 minutes. So thank you so much for everyone for watching. This is Murray. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I just want to say take care everybody, and thank you so much for watching, and the latest videos should be coming on the screen now or on the right hand side. So bye.